Hello and welcome to TalkBack, the show where we ask tough, compelling questions from tough, compelling people. He is one of the most outspoken movie makers in India today. His critics say that sometimes, just sometimes, there's too much sex and scandal in his movies. But his admirers say that he's just pushing the envelope. He's known for taking some tough stands on some of the toughest issues in this country. And he's also known in Pakistan for working with Pakistani artists across the divide for the purposes of cultural synthesis. Some call him the director who became a producer. We call him the producer who will never cease to be a director. Mahesh Bhatt, welcome to TalkBack.
Thank you.
When everyone is thinking big movies, big budgets, big sets, you're thinking small. You're thinking small is big.
Unfortunately, you're confusing scale with big thought. And people who have no content cover up their absence of content with a lot of surface dazzle. So you have what you see all around you. A lot of sizzle, no substance. I have always believed that if you have something to say, you need very few words in your arsenal to say them. But when you have nothing to say, you indulge in a lot of verbal gymnastics and land up tiring the listener. So I have made my mark with movies like Arth, Saransh, Zakhm. Of late, we made a film called Avarapan, which did very well in Pakistan. And they were big in thought. They were not timid. So I feel that I will remain shackled, wedded to that core ideology, that we need to be unleashing the creative juices of our company by kind of asking them to dig into them and come up with original thought.
But you mentioned creative juices. I'm just going to give you some stark criticism. Bear with me. This critic says, Mahesh Bhatt films have three kind of characters. One, illegitimate children of famous people. Two, people falling in love with psychotic characters. And three, illegitimate children of famous people falling in love with psychotic characters. Have you been stereotyped?
Well, I've always maintained that you inhale life and exhale cinema. If your origin is stigmatized by that word illegitimacy, because in this age and time, the world still holds on to that outdated, cobwebbed value system, which looks upon at an offspring of Mother Nature as illegitimate because they have not necessarily gone through the parents have not necessarily gone through the marriage vows of that particular society. And you have been at the receiving end because of that kind of narrow-mindedness of that society that you were born in. There is obviously that those scars will have a lasting impact on your creative work. And the word psychotic, yes, I have, for some strange reason, had the fortune and at times the misfortune of meeting people who were on the edge or had gone over the edge. And madness has a peculiar way of leaving its footprints on your consciousness. And so, speak memory.
But I'm going to compare you to someone very junior to you. Karan Johar movies are supposed to be glitzy and bubbly and goody-goody. But just like, hey, he can't make a movie without that, your critics say you can't make a movie without sex and scandal.
Well, sex is something which I had to use in the 21st century. If you see the films of 80s, which I made, like Arth, Saransh and a film called Naam, which was a blockbuster, they were middle-class, prudish films. That was the India of the 80s. Then the India of the 90s changed. The economy opened up. The world started to kind of pour in. the images changed. The communication revolution suddenly had descended on the world. And I made Ashiki and Dil Hai Ka Manta Nahi and Sadak, because those were the films that the consumers wanted to see. The middle class highbrows just abandoned the cinema halls. And the young, brain-dead kids, as you call them in cinematic terms, were the only people that we had to cater to.
But this is quite an admission from you.
And then in the 21st century, I had to move completely away from that individual who made path-breaking films according to the watchkeepers of culture, the czars and the tsarinas of culture, the people who say that we will allow a particular work to come into the museum and a particular work to stand outside the museum unless it meets our taste buds. I moved away from Arth and Saransh and made a jism and a murder, realizing that the 21st century India had nothing to do with the India of 1980s. The world had changed, and how? Not only the metros, not only the elite and the alienated elite were asking for more titillation, but the nation was asking for more gratification, not edification. So we made films which catered to that need.
But this is what you said about jism. You just mentioned jism, and this is a quote from you. I must plead guilty for bringing in what I call soft porn into the mainstream of Indian cinema. Jism was undoubtedly a quality film because for the first time on the Indian screen you saw the Indian heroine unapologetically say that she uses her body to get what she wants.
Exactly.
You think India is ready for this?
India has been ready. India has no reason to pretend to herself that it is not ready. It takes one honest look at its own great tradition that it flaunts to the world. I would want them to come with me for a guided tour down to the temples of India, where every conceivable sex posture is etched in stone to last for centuries. It's not my opinion, it's there for the world to see. Kama Sutra is what India manufactures and sells with pride as coffee table books, and huge price tags are attached to it. So I don't think India was a land that was sexophobic. This is a Judeo-Christian hangover which came post the British Raj, which we somehow held on to believing that this is your great heritage. And yes, and the 21st century India, where you are kind of in the throes of what is called the globalization process, where the American way of life, whether you like it or not, is going to be the way of thinking for the rest of the world. They are doing everything to export those images and those value references into your homes. So the kids are undergoing a change. I was shocked when I saw Jism in the winter of 2002 or 2003 when it released in Delhi, in a most sophisticated area, in a multiplex, that 90% of the audience were women dressed in expensive cardigans and expensive shawls belonging to the elite. They were not industrial workers who were sex starved who were coming to watch Bipasha Basu in that film. So the consumers' appetites have changed. And that's what cultural intelligence is all about. A filmmaker has the intelligence to see the changing times. He demolishes the model